Welcome to Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. For over 10 years, we've produced weekly episodes featuring epic tales of tech support and troubleshooting, discussions about managing our clients and businesses, and interviews with colleagues and vendors. For our pro listeners, we offer Patreon-exclusive shows. This private podcast feed is tailor-made for IT professionals looking for advice and guidance on the more challenging aspects of running your practice, working with your clients and employees, and managing your fleets of devices. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll unlock a world of deeper Apple expertise, meaningful connections, and a shared passion for Apple technology. Simply visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support. Command Control Power is brought to you commercial-free thanks to the support of our community. Our VIP supporters include Adigy, Tidbits Content Network, and Cirrus Partners. Thanks very much to our VIP supporters, and thanks to all of our patrons for supporting the show.
Welcome to another edition of Command Control Power. We have the power of two today, myself and Joe Saponare, who is still in recovery mode from a crippling illness that he had on a plane flight from back east. Additionally, I'm noticing we do video of our shows. And if you do want to hear the complete unedited version of what we chat about, you can always watch that on YouTube. The released audio that we put in our podcast feed just as a little bit tighter version of the show. But if you want to hear all our mistakes and all our ums and ahs, you can get them in their full glory on YouTube. And the reason why I bring this up is I'm noticing here, I'm looking at myself today, I'm looking at you, Joe, my head is gigantic. I look like Superman's
a little bit here.
Yeah. I don't know. I look like Superman's dad, Joe Rao, who just floats in space.
Oh, yeah.
And I just got this big round melon head.
Gotcha. Yeah, I never understand the relative size. It depends on which camera is the source and then how far I'm sitting. I like to be able to see the logo of whatever shirt I'm wearing. Usually in this case, my company shirt or a Command Control Power shirt, which check us out at commandcontrolpower.com. We do sell the merch there and you can get your very own. But yeah, it's a balance between full frame talking head versus the whatever you call the alternative view of what someone's got on their shirt there.
Just one mention of the merch. The current t-shirts that we're selling are embroidered. So most of the time we had a t-shirt that was silk screened, and the quality of the embroidery and the actual quality of the shirt itself is really nice and washes really well. So if you folks ever thought of getting your own t-shirt for ACES, maybe this coming ACES in Austin in 2025, this might be a good time. Avoid the rush.
Great time. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was thinking, getting right into it, I was thinking of things that I did recently with my business. And I'm thinking it doesn't have to be within the last 6 months or 12 months, or just things that I'm doing differently present day that I wasn't doing in the beginning. So I have one thing that comes to mind. I have a large client. It's a school. And I have been using Zendesk for my ticketing system. And for the most part, because I'm an army of one and I handle all the requests that come in, a lot of my regular clients, whether they're business or residential, they email me directly. And I've never really forced the issue of the ticket. And I take the lazy tech approach to that.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to get into Zendesk when it was a free product. So I think I paid $1 a month.
I was on that plan for a while too, until I needed more than 3 seats. I think they gave me the $1 per seat per month, but over 3 seats, you need to jack it up to $20 per seat or something. So
you can't even jump. Yeah, I can't even make any change at all without really reaching into my wallet. And I'm very cheap. If you,
I had to notice that.
Yeah, if I can get it for free, I'm going to always opt for how can I make the free version work? But I was lucky enough most recently to look into kind of tightening up my act for my educational client. And I wanted to move them to a ticketing system exclusively and not have anything fall through the cracks. And additionally, they had a change of leadership over there. And I might have mentioned this a little bit on an earlier show, but I'm a little bit more accountable for the work that I do. So I think if I can show that I'm trafficking tickets back and forth and I'm resolving issues, because a lot of the stuff, again, lazy man approach, somebody pings me. If it's quick, I just fix it and I don't record it. I don't charge them for it. But now at least I thought it would be a good idea. So I was able through my free version of Zendesk to actually create a new unique email identity. So it's help desk at this particular institution.edu and track those separately in Zendesk. And the only enhancement I did was in my Zendesk ticketing system, there's third-party plugins that you can actually pay for from vendors. And so I got one that was able to create a unique signature for my backwork stuff if I'm responding via a ticketing system versus this Edu client. So I'm responding as their IT admin with the school logo on it. And it's actually really cleaned up my act and made me look a lot more professional. And it didn't really cost me anything.
Great tip. Yeah. And then you're just passively tracking those metrics, the number of tickets per month, the number of tickets closed per month, the length of time, if you do any time tracking on there. So that can be really powerful, like you said, in terms of how you can demonstrate your value if need be in the future. I'm curious it's great that you're able to present as like internal IT for this particular client, which it sounds like is the role they prefer. It certainly makes sense versus showing it as an outsourced function. It probably is preferred by the powers that be there to show it as like something that the school, offers essentially. Now, you mentioned a custom email address at that school edu address, which I imagine then forwards in or whatever to Zendesk. Do you train the users, whether it's the students or the teachers? I assume it's mostly just the staff there, right? That reach out to you in this way. Do you train them to use that new address, or do you simply forward these previous emails where people are used to just emailing your company address directly? Do you just forward those to this new address and then they get automatically tagged and then handled that way, or how does that workflow go?
Yes, I have a text expander snippet. I do forward it to the Zendesk ticketing system. And then I have this little blurb of information that I put at the very front. Please make sure that when you need technical support, this is the email address that you use. I also am using the free support app that lives in your menu bar. And there I've created a little panel where if they click on it, it automatically goes to the Zendesk website and creates a ticket for them, an open ticket that they can fill out. Yeah, but again, it takes a little bit of time for them to train, and then it's an easy address to remember. It's just helpdesk at yourdomain.edu. So yeah, that's what worked out really well. And like you said, it just adds a little bit more of a professional touch to what we're doing and enhances the value that we're providing. I say we, but it's just me. I like to talk.
We, as you say,
the kingly we. Yeah.
The kingly, yeah. You just reminded me mentioning the support app. We've talked in the past about the contact menu that was part of Watchman monitoring and using either the support app, or you can use Adigy to replace that functionality to some degree. I've been experimenting with Adigy's self-service. I haven't really needed it so much for my clients, maybe in just a handful of specific cases where we need a way to allow them to run a script, for example, or maybe when we've chatted with users through the built-in chat function in Adigy, they're getting the self-service experience that way as well. But I've just been experimenting with it. I really like the current design. I think they've really done some really good just UI improvements to the self-service app. It's very clean and fast to interact with. The way the information is presented is very easy. And I'm just talking really basic functionality. So I've gone in and I've added a description, which basically comes from my website. It's a little bit of marketing speak, but it just gives people a sense of who we are. I've had this question come up a surprising amount of times where, staff at different companies I work for don't really know who we are and what we do or what our relationship is. Do you are you employees at this company? No, we're an outside firm. Oh, do you have other clients? Yeah. Oh, can you help me with? Yes, absolutely. So it's just a nice little proactive thing to do to include a little blurb about what your company is. We say a team of certified Apple consultants offering high quality technology support for over 20 years. We support residential clients and small businesses. And
I'd buy that.
There. Yeah, but sign me up, right?
Yeah, but now you say it's in the support app. Actually, where is that presented?
Self-service app in Adigy.
Self-service, I'm sorry.
Yep, so it's just on the info tab. You can choose whether to show that description or not. You can include whether to show phone number, et cetera. So I just have the company name.
I see.
the description, I no longer include my office address to my defunct office, which we closed about this time last year. But I, of course, include the phone number and the contact email for our ticketing system. Users can also go to an activity tab to see like events that have taken place on the device, as Adigi says right there. They can review their tickets. They can start a new ticket right from there. They can run those scripts that we give them access to, for example. This is a good place if you want to have something like, here's the first thing to try. I've always really wanted to spend time on a script that will just like self-diagnose or self-repair issues for clients, even if all it really does is say, hey, you haven't restarted in 7 days, let's start there. But it could do a comprehensive thing saying, we've checked your disk space, check mark. We've checked your uptime, check mark. And maybe show them some feedback. Hey, we're doing something. Thanks for clicking that little self-diagnose thing. We're doing something and we're advising you accordingly.
And do you have something like that deployed or no?
I don't have something like that. It would be a good
These
place
are just
for
pipe dreams.
Yeah, pipe dreams. Exactly. I have my command control power restart script in Adigi. That's part of the Adigi community scripts. I have some other little scripts that I've built, but I'd like to put these together and make them like an on-demand thing for a client where it would say, looks like you need an update, and then here's how to do that, maybe using Nudge or something like that, or because it hasn't happened automatically for whatever reason. You can also include profiles that they can install if desired. I haven't really found a use case for that yet. And you can also include, of course, apps that they're allowed to deploy. And again, it hasn't really been important in my organizations. We just deploy those apps that they might use. We don't make it optional, like for them to do it themselves. But what I have done is I've included the macOS Tips app as a app on the install tab, which of course it's already installed. The Tips app has been there for a while. I've just found it's really nice on Sequoia. When I upgraded to Sequoia a little while back, it starts prompting you with some tips. It's actually really well presented information. And with the number of changes in Sequoia with Apple Intelligence and things like that, the iPhone mirroring app, these are new paradigms, the Passwords app. It's nice to actually review Apple's materials on that and get that kind of explainer and that introduction to it. So I built a smart software in Adigi, which all it literally does is when you click install, it just opens the built-in Tips app. So it doesn't actually install anything. It just opens the built-in app, but it shows the client that they can click install, and there's the app. So it's an easy way to just incorporate even built-in apps there. So you can make your self-service something that is a place that people can go, even if you're just starting to get them used to this concept. But even speaking of, how do you get support? Here's our help desk email address. Here's our phone number. Here's what we do. So that's another idea. And if and when I replace watch and monitoring, I think I'll actually try using the built-in self-service icon in the menu bar rather than support app necessarily. But I'm curious from you, have you had some good success there with the support app in particular, or have you heard any feedback from clients is it just like branding for you, or do you have any functionality there that they're going to open a ticket?
It displays as a little medic bag with a red cross on it. And you can customize it and activate the panels to do what you would normally want to do that would serve your business well. So one of the panels tells the user what version of the Mac OS they're on. Another one tells them how long it's been since they last restarted. It shows them their disk space. So there's information that is valuable to them, but how many people are interacting with it or even notice that it's there? I have no idea. All I'm happy about is that I provided a way for us to show value again. And again, I don't think my ultimate goal will be to get my regular clients on board with my Zendesk ticketing system. I think it all depends on the client, but for the most part, I think they like the personal touch. They feel like if they're emailing me directly, and it's because it's just me, it's not a big deal. It's either I respond or I don't respond, and I'm always going to respond. But they feel like it's a little bit more direct rather than going into Zendesk and they think it might be a little bit more impersonal.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it too. Even though I'm now just a team of two, but it does help us to use a ticketing system so that we can see the status of like where did Tim leave off and where did I pick up, et cetera. And you've seen our ticketing system when you contract for us as well. And it's an easy way to say, here's the kind of punch list, and then we see your notes from the ticket. And it's there for future reference too. So it's not an email thread I have to track down. It's a official looking, it's an official record. It's a ticket. From there, it goes in our system from a ticket to an invoice. And then that's how we do our billing. And so there's a lot of benefits to that. But even in my case, I still do a lot through email because it's just more efficient. Some people might be rolling their eyes that email is efficient, according to me, but it's efficient when a request comes from a client. Like you said, they know me, they need me. They're asking me for help. Maybe they copy Tim, or maybe they email Tim and copy me. They're still copying Judy in some cases, and Judy's not working for us anymore. And that's all fine. If I see that Tim's not on the thread and I think he needs to be in the loop, I'll just add him to CC, or I'll take it to a ticket. If it's an official kind of record type thing where, dear client, please approve securely erasing this old hardware that we picked up from you, and here's the serial number, whatever, we just reply back with I approve, and they reply back I approve. Great. Now it's in a ticket, it's documented. Email is fine if there's a lot of back and forth about scheduling, or like you said earlier, maybe it's an easy request and I can just give them the answer, or I can just fix it and then tell them it's fixed or whatever. That doesn't need to be a ticket necessarily. So I use a combination of both as well, but I have tried to move more into tickets for anything that's going to be billable ultimately. The sooner I can get it into the ticketing system, the better, just to track that history as well.
And just to remind our listeners, you're using RepairShopper for your ticketing and your billing system, or at least to trigger the bill. Does RepairShopper offer a way for you to generate an invoice right from there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a built-in function too. Yep. I mean, it does what I need it to do. It's just a lot of clicks, and it's a lot of, my systems are not fully integrated. Like, it's not a single pane of glass to, like, if I onboard a new client, I put them in my contacts, and I also put them into RepairShopper separately. I don't have those syncing in both directions right now. But yeah, in RepairShopper, that stuff is pretty automatic. Like, it's a ticket. I track time on it. Time gets recorded as charges. Charges then will show as pending charges until I invoice them, and then they'll fall off that list. So it's an easy way to remember something still needs to be billed. It's an easy way to see, I can obviously track the total number of hours billed, or depending on how you work. That works for me because we use prepaid. It supports prepaid hours. It supports obviously different rates for different types of services rendered, in an inventory system as well. And then take all that and create an invoice, and then follow up about payment, collect payment through Stripe, using a credit card or ACH if they've enrolled. Yeah. So it does everything just with a lot of clicks involved.
Right. If someone's listening to this and they wanted to check out RepairShopper, do you have any idea on their pricing for, let's say, a single member consulting service?
I think the tier that I'm on, I think, is per location, and we only ever had one location officially that we worked out of, besides going on site, obviously, and it's the same now. So I think it's like around $1,500 maybe per location. I don't know if there's a limit to the number of techs. We didn't hit it, so it must be like 5 or more is the limit, something like that. Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question. Just curious. When you come up with a price, now I think you and I work the same way, where we have a service and we include Adigy and we include maybe backup, maybe not, and we have a number for our internal cost on that, and then we offer a number to the client subscribes. They might get discounted hours with us. Right. Do you factor in the cost of RepairShopper, because that is such a big number compared to what I have? I have nothing really. I use Daylight internally to track jobs and things like that, big projects when they come along, but I'm not paying that number that you're paying. So do you take like that 1,500 and divide it up and say, it roughly cost me about $1 a client per month or something like that?
Yeah. So I should clarify, it's 100 per year. I don't know if I mentioned.
Yeah. So like $1 a client, maybe less than, right? 50 cents. So it's probably not negligible.
Yeah, exactly. It counts. It's definitely something.
Or it is negligible.
It depends on how you look at it. It's so the way I look at those types of costs is in QuickBooks, I track that because I also use QuickBooks for the accounting side. So RepairShopper does tie into QuickBooks for inventory, syncing and invoices and receivables and things. So in QuickBooks, I have certain tools as part of my Prime platform, as I call it. So that would be like per monthly plan subscriber client, these tools are required for that. So that would be like Adigy, Watchman Monitoring, Backblaze in the cases where we pay for it for the client, where it's included with the plan, things like that. And then as distinct from that, we have also like just our general tools. So QuickBooks is required as a tool that we use for the business, regardless of what business I do.
I see where you're headed with this.
Monthly clients. And likewise, RepairShopper is needed, whether they're a plan subscriber or not. I don't really look at it. I mean, I have tried to make those calculations on the macro level, like when I'm looking at my plan pricing. But yeah, that doesn't move the needle as much as something that is priced per machine, like Adigy, or even Watchman is like buckets. So that has a cost. It's like that's maybe $1 or something per machine based on how many we're using in terms of subscribers.
Yeah, I guess if I was starting my business over again and I didn't get daylight for free, I would need something. And RepairShopper certainly sounds affordable to me at that $1,500 price range, even for a cheap, lazy consultant like myself who doesn't want to spend money.
Yeah, no, it's worth it to have a system in place, especially like I'd recommend, I don't know if this applies to you, Jerry, but to some of our listeners, if you're thinking of maybe growing someday, if you're, one person operation, you want to add a second or third, having a system like this in place that you're very familiar with. Yes, it's a little bit of extra overhead when you like to just fly by the seat of your pants. You get an email or a text from a client, doesn't really matter what form it comes in, you respond and you move on. If you can train yourself to put it into your system, whether it's Zendesk or RepairShopper, Synchro, SuperOps, what are some of these other ones that are out there? It will help you in the long term to do that because it's way easier to bring someone on and say, okay, making a new user account, I'm giving you access to all the tickets, or I'm giving you access to the tickets I assigned to you, or whatever the case may be. Or here's some of my tickets that I want you to read to get to know my style. Here's how I want you to do your billing. Here's how much we charge for this type of work. That's all in the system. So it's a really easy way to just help with your eventual onboarding process. So I highly recommend having a system, even if it's as rudimentary as I would say RepairShopper is.
And what just comes to mind too, as you're mentioning that, is if you were ever in a position where someone was looking to acquire you, you have a book of business which is now documented in RepairShopper. You're just not showing them some sort of a raw number. Oh, this is what we made last year. And I'm sure you could pull the invoices from it. I could, but it's a lot easier to look into a system and say, oh yeah, I could see that there's been consistent activity 12 months out of the year for CIMAC. And so I think there's value there too, that you've got a book that people can look at if they were looking to buy you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, let's say Justin Escar was listening to this show and he wanted to acquire both you and me, Joe. You would be able to show him a little bit more documentation.
Yeah, exactly. Just right. Welcome. And here's the link to log in. And I hope you like what you find in there in my system.
That's right.
No, it's interesting. I was actually thinking, because speaking of Justin, we joke sometimes about his plan for world domination, and we see him acquiring different businesses and things. And he's got a lot of irons in the fire, like the ACES conference. I was thinking about ACES, and Justin offers these coaching sessions, either with him or with other people in his on his team there, or outsiders. It may be really worthwhile for the two of us, or maybe the three of us with Sam, to sit down with a business coach. And maybe we don't necessarily want it to be one of our direct colleagues, but maybe with some kind of NDA arrangement in place with an outside business coach. But just to say, here, we're willing to open the kimono to some degree. Here's some reports, let's say, that each of us provide. What are some places where we could collaborate even more, or where there's synergy between us? Or how would it look at, in all honesty, maybe getting acquired by someone, or joining forces with the or three of us to say, here's our new consultancy. We've got an even bigger roster of both clients and employees, a bigger team. Maybe we're stronger together than otherwise. That to me is just an intuitive sense that we would be in a better position potentially to be acquired by some larger organization if we combine forces first. maybe a business coach disagrees or agrees and can give us some strategies to look at doing. So it is something I thought of, and it's just a feature of the ACES conference that you don't hear as much about, but some of these coaching sessions could be really valuable to sit down and have actual FaceTime with a one-on-one with a business coach, or like I'm describing with us with a coach.
Yeah, certainly is an interesting possibility. One of the things that we've talked about in the past is the automatic billing. And I haven't done that recently, but that's been the one, I think, revolutionary change that has made a difference for my business, is recurring revenue and not being so focused on getting a check from people, because I was really resistant and pushed back by the credit card fees.
Yeah.
And that took a long time to look past that. And that's been really important to do.
That's a rare counterpoint where you're the last one on the train.
The last holdout,
Yeah, you're usually the first one on board with a lot of the certainly new technology, new software, new business practices, methods. Let me try this. You just put it out there and roll it out and give it a try. With that, I know you were more resistant. I can certainly understand that, because when you have this number in your head, like 3% off the top goes out the window to someone else just for processing the payment. But for me, that relieved so much stress. That was probably one of the best things I did, because we just had the agreement in place with almost every client. Now, certainly all of our plan subscriber clients, when we enroll them, we say, we take a credit card for payment, and we use that to process your monthly charges for the plan and all consulting time going forward. So I write up what I did. It's a fair amount of time. It's the right amount of time. There's no question. I spent this time, the rate. There should be no negotiation about it. Why do I need to send them a bill and get them to approve it? So we've gotten pre-approval that when you hire us to do the work, we do the work, we send you the paid invoice. That's the agreement. And it goes right on the credit card. What that does is it eliminates the stress of, where's my money? How am I going to make payroll or pay for RepairShopper this week? It's coming up for this year's charges coming up, or whatever it is. And I'm waiting on this check from a client or whatever. Sure, it's going to be the full amount with including every last percentage or whatever. However, you may have to wait. And so if you actually look at on a bigger scale than I am, I think this would make more of a difference. But the cash flow is a real thing. The sooner you get the money, the sooner it can be invested or just go toward paying off bills that otherwise are going to, cost you more later. Whether you're at a bank for your clients and you're getting paid up front and therefore investing the money and then earning more of a percentage back, that's the reason that's one of the reasons there is a charge on processing payments, is that the sooner you get the money in your account, the sooner you can, in theory, invest it and make something on that money. I'll give you another example where cash flow really helps quite a bit. I was approached by Smith AI. I know you also use Smith AI, and this was a key part of my strategy when we downsized. As I mentioned, last year we closed our office. About 6 months ago, we dropped our operations manager, who was up until that point responsible for the day-to-day logistics and scheduling and incoming requests, fielding those requests, et cetera. I realized that there was a lot of money going toward that role in my company when it would be more efficient in some ways for me to just handle it myself, and certainly much more cost effective. So I made that leap, banking on the fact that I could do that by supplementing with Smith AI, essentially. And so for much less money per month, but for a significant amount per month, based on the number of calls we have on average, we're paying Smith AI. Now, they approached me about how their rates are going to go up next year. Did you get approached by them, Jerry, about this?
I didn't, but we are talking, to be clear, about a virtual receptionist. So that doesn't mean a robot answers your calls. You get a human, but the human has a script that you've worked out with them in the past. They answer as your company. They can schedule an appointment if that's the way you want to work, or they just simply take a message.
For me, what they said was, thanks for being on board. I've been a customer now for whatever it is, 5 full months, I think, something like that. I think they explicitly said our rates are going up next year in light of inflation or whatever they mentioned. And they offered an opportunity to prepay at a discount under a contract for 1 year or 2. And this can also help with offsetting a tax burden. So I'm fully anticipating this year, since I've dropped an employee, of course, I don't have that payroll from that employee to write off against my tax burden, right? So I'm going to be recognizing more revenue this year or more profit this year than previous years on that alone. Also with dropping the office, same thing. I don't have the expense of my rent, et cetera.
So you need some write-downs.
Yeah, so it would serve me to actually, to have more write-offs to say,
smart.
let me offset this. So also they're offering me a discount, not only on, so I'm getting the current rate locked in, which presumably otherwise would have gone up. So I was paying something like, let's say $500 a month on that. That was going to, let's just say that would have gone up above $500. In fact, they're offering a discount on that rate of something significant, like 20%. Right off the top, I'm getting that discount and I'm getting the tax benefit of being able to claim that this year. And again, that's all highly dependent on cash flow. So if I didn't have these credit cards being processed automatically with this reliable recurring revenue coming in, and even charges for the work that we do, the payment immediately coming in for that, I wouldn't be spending my little bit that I've accumulated in the bank on something that's I don't need to spend until I can just pay Smith AI every month for the next 12 months. But I have that opportunity because I have that reliable income coming in from that cash flow. And so therefore I can actually save. And I took the opportunity to say, you know what? I'm going to try to actually reduce the number of calls every month while we're at it. So I had signed up for, I think, it was like 60 calls on average over the last year. We're trending down, actually. And I think part of that is I'm just answering more calls myself because I don't have somebody doing that for me. And sure, I see the call come in on my phone. I can ignore it. It rolls over to Smith AI. They can still reach me and maybe transfer to me. That's going to cost me one of my calls that month, essentially.
Sure.
So if I'm able to, I'll just answer it. And that way I'm going to try and reduce the call burden, reduce the charge from Smith AI. And I've got it down to 40 calls per month now. And with the discount on top of that, and I'm saving a couple $100 a month.
That's terrific. And if you haven't used the service, all you need to do is text them, which says that send all the calls directly to me, don't pick them up. And then when you're ready, if you have to go on a call, you just text back and immediately the service clicks back on again. So it's real easy to switch back and forth from them. It's interesting you bring this up. The only thing I bill for is my account, my recurring account with my clients, which I call MacWorks Total Care. Yep. So I don't have an agreement to auto bill if I'm doing work. Because I do have some clients who are regular clients who prefer to pay by check. So I bill that with a billing system that I use. So I don't have that understanding that you have with your clients. What was the mechanism for you to put that in place? And the other question I have is, if I'm a new client and I want you to use ACH, can you set that up for me on your side, or do you have to send me an invoice and then I have to set up the ACH? Because
I don't know. It's a good question.
The payment gateway that I use, which is Square, the Square reader, I can bill them and they have the option of paying with ACH,
right?
But I can't take that number and set them up with it. They have to do it themselves on their side.
I see. That makes sense because you're dealing with bank account numbers and all that. Yeah. So I'm not actually sure about that enrollment. So I know that through RepairShopper and their integration with Stripe, that's my payment processor, I can send a client a link to a specific invoice or to their online profile through RepairShopper, and they have a way to just add a credit card. I'm not sure I think the last I looked at it, I don't know that RepairShopper supported ACH, so I'd have to do that as a side channel thing because Stripe supports
through
it.
Stripe. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I'd have to maybe process that separately.
But what I'm saying is
do it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you log into Stripe, and I'm talking to you on the phone, can you take my ACH credential in and set me up?
Good question.
Yeah, I don't think you. I think legally you can't.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
It would make sense for the for the bank.
And you probably don't want to. For a liability standpoint, it's better for them to take that burden off your back.
Yes. So I haven't done it, although I should, because the amounts we're talking about add up. It's certainly the thing is, also, I'm not sure about the incentive for the client, because what I've noticed some of our colleagues do is say, Yeah, I prefer to have them ACH and I offer a discount, or there's usually some kind of incentive that either they get a discount or they're not paying an extra fee that they otherwise would pay for credit cards. So in other words, like ACH would be the assumption. And that's one thing if you deal with larger businesses where everybody understands why you're doing that, it just saves a lot of money. And if you had 5 large companies that you worked for, yeah, you have a huge incentive to get all 5 on ACH and have a disincentive for them to use credit card. Sure, we can accept credit card if we must with an extra 5% tacked on. Oh, I want to avoid the 5%, so I go with ACH.
But you can't, because you can't do that though.
You're doing business in the state, right? I know.
No, of course.
Oh, I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're doing business in Connecticut. So if you're listening to the show, we've talked about this before. Connecticut's one of the few states in the continental US that forbids you for tacking on an extra charge if a client decides to pay with a credit card.
You can't add a fee on the credit card charge, but you can offer a discount on the other side, right?
So you charge higher and you offer a discount if they don't pay by credit card.
Got it. Yeah, exactly. Chris Hauver in the chat says we switched to Benji Pays and it's been great. Auto processing when our monthly hits, which is what RepairShopper does for me. And he says, plus they pass on credit card fees. So that's interesting too. Clients can choose ACH or credit card with fees.
With fees, right. Credit card fees are pretty standard across the board. It's not like you can maybe save not even a quarter of a
percent,
barely.
Not even, right.
Doesn't make sense to chase it down.
Right. So you asked me about how do we get on that kind of agreement with clients. We used to do this as well with mailing invoices. So we had our monthly plan subscribers. That was great because we had some recurring revenue. I mean, we had that recurring revenue. And for the rest, they could choose to pay by credit card, or most of them would send a check. We'd send the invoice by mail and then we would wait and then we get paid, or we'd send it by email and likewise wait and then get paid. So eventually we just got to the fact that really when I moved away from Connecticut, what I had to do is I had to have people check my mail. And when I had my bookkeeper working there locally, he would get the mail, take the checks, record the deposits in QuickBooks and RepairShopper, take them to the bank, make the deposit. So he would do that like on a weekly basis for me.
Like an animal.
Yeah, it's all manual process. It would be a delay on top of a delay. It's like by the time the check comes, oh, it's in the mail. Fine, we'll get it. It didn't arrive today. I guess we'll check again in a week on our side. So now there's another delay. And then he moved. So I was no longer in Connecticut and my bookkeeper was no longer in Connecticut. And so I had no one to really make a bank deposit for me. And so then I would have, you were in Connecticut, but as small a state as Connecticut is, you were not close. I was having people actually collect the mail and FedEx it to me once a month once I moved to Boulder. And so this was not sustainable, clearly. So that was my real incentive to say, checks, we're not doing that anymore. Sorry, we don't accept payment by check. I didn't even look it up. Am I allowed? I don't know. That's legal tender, right? It's not. I guess I have to accept cash as a business, right? Or maybe you don't. I don't know is there a federal rule about this? Am I allowed to say I don't accept cash money? I think I can. Maybe I'm overthinking that, but I just made this arbitrary decision. No more checks. It's a business policy. We don't accept payment by check. And I was fully prepared for somebody to say, I don't blah, blah, blah. I don't use credit cards or I don't whatever. Okay, we'll figure it out. Or it's not going to be a fit. Like if this is a one-off person or something, like, I'm sorry, you can't pay me by credit card. It's not going to work out. You got the blah, blah, blah tag up there. Good. But it was my incentive. And I just decided, let me bite the bullet and say, we no longer accept payment by check. We require, even if you're not a monthly plan subscriber, we require a credit card on file. Now, I will say they don't all do that. So they don't all put the card in the system and allow me to process payment if they're just a one-off or occasional non-plan subscriber. They will go in and they will click a button and put in their credit card number manually each time. And I've had to wait. Most recently, I did work for a client about 2 months ago now, who was a employee of a client, but needed something personally. Took 15 minutes. The bill was not a large bill. And it reminded me exactly why we don't work this way anymore, because it just took email after email automated from our system getting to her, no response, me following up, hey, just want to make sure you saw this, me calling her and saying, hey, want to make sure you got my email and the other email. And now, And eventually they're just excuses like, oh, I'm going through some stuff and, I'll get to this as soon as I can. The money involved was such a minimal amount that it just felt ridiculous to have to chase this down. And for her,
she wanted you to roll over.
I think so. I think there was like a run out the clock kind of thing.
You know what? So, forget it.
Yeah.
But you didn't. You stuck to your guns. That's my approach.
I do the work. I get paid. If that system breaks down, we have big problems here.
And didn't you have a company or a person owe you some money and you've got 2/3 of it just recently? Like after months and months?
That was the one, actually. Yeah. So eventually after
you didn't get the full amount.
I still didn't get the full amount on the smallest invoice we ever would write.
Man.
It was for 15 minutes of time. So it was, and I'm not judging. Maybe she's really going through some stuff personally. It just seems like don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Like, don't hire the service if you can't pay the rate. And I even clarified at one point, I said, was this a company thing? I know I'm clearly, like, from the context of what we were working on, it seemed like a personal matter. Like, I made a judgment call. I'm invoicing this person, not the company. The company is like 2 other people. So it's not like that would have gone into some accounts payable process and it would have slipped under the radar. I think the owner would have said, what was this? I'm not going to pay this. But I asked her, the person who hired us, to just clarify, do you want me to send this to the company? I don't know what your arrangement is. Maybe they're willing to pay this for you. I don't know. But she said, no, it's a personal thing. I'll get to you. I'm so sorry. It just took the amount of, it was more than 15. It was probably cumulatively 30 minutes of my follow-ups between quick phone call here. Oh, the ticket popped up again. Let me call her. Let me email her. All these little touch points, more than the 15 minutes of time that I spent. So it just proved the point of get that agreement in place. And I was concerned, like you might be, Jerry, where I thought people aren't going to want to just give me carte blanche, literally blank check to like, just charge the card whatever I think is fair, like whatever number I come up with. But they've been fine with it. The time spent is a time spent. We have documentation of everything. Very rarely somebody will say, really, this total for this work? I thought all we did was blah, 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 blah. And I thought all we spent was 45. Really? Let me check my phone log thing. Right. And I have it was an hour. And then, on top of that, it was another 15 minutes that I didn't charge you for, actually. And so, we prove it to them and they say, okay, thanks. So it very rarely happens. I'd highly recommend getting that kind of agreement in place just to get the money, if you want to get paid faster. Obviously, that's the main benefit.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the volume of the work and I don't know. Like for me, I think if I start barking up that tree, it just might open up a Pandora's box and having to spend more of my personal time trying to get them to do this ultimately. And, how I don't really have too many people that are slow pay. What I do, and this is probably true with most billing systems, is you can send reminders. And so I have ChatGPT come up with unique reminders. I always just take the last reminder and I put it through ChatGPT and I say, rewrite this for me, but make it a little bit more intense. And so we just turn up the volume just a little bit and ChatGPT will do that for, hey, and right now the person who owes me money is an attorney. And I make this clear that our rates are calculated on payment at the time of service. Yeah. Now we're into a whole different thing. Yeah. Like 21 days have gone by. This is, if I could go back and recharge you, this is not the current rate anymore. You owe me more because you're making me wait.
Yeah, exactly. This is not the deal we had. Payment is due at time services are rendered. Yeah, that's the agreement. Yeah. And I'll give you one more example of it. An attorney, you just mentioned an attorney. This is the one guy that always comes to mind when I think about like everything's automated. I enter the charges, I send the invoice, the system follows up and pings them, and I have it set 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, whatever, I forget, 21, 30, 45, 90. I hope it never gets to that point, whatever. And they get a little bit more insistent, but still pretty gentle. So this guy got an automated reminder. It says, dear client, this is an automated reminder. You can't miss it, right? This is an automated reminder that you have a balance due to SIMAC. Please remit payment at your earliest convenience. Invoice number, date, invoice amount, whatever. So this was like 21 days later, based on the date of the invoice, that he's getting this reminder. Invoice amount due, total account balance due. We're talking like $100 and whatever. This was for whatever amount of time. He replies to the automated reminder and he says, I assure you 2 things. On May 5th, I sent check number for the full amount, blah, 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 and I'm betting you've received my check. The second thing on the next line there is, I will now find another service. Overreaction much? This is an automated reminder. Clearly, we haven't gotten your May 5th check, whatever, like on May 12th. It's been 7 days. Like, the mail can take that long, especially this was the beginning of 2020, like May 2020. So that is the exception that proves the rule. Like, no one else has ever really complained or whined or overreacted to the fact that we charge them automatically, or in those rare exceptions, they get a reminder if they haven't paid it. You know? It's like they understand you did the work. They got to pay for it. But that guy
every bad experience, and I've had a few, they're all attorneys. And usually the red flag is you go into the office, and I don't know if you ever saw, it's a fairly old movie. It's with Paul Newman, and it's called The Verdict. And Paul Newman, pretty much, he's an alcoholic attorney. He's all washed up, and you go into his office, and his office is a mess. Yeah. And the whole arc of the movie is he takes on this case, and he realizes this case is really important. He cleans up his act, and he does his razzle dazzle in the courtroom. It's a good film. But I always use that example, and it's a dated reference. The moment you walk into the office and there's like chaos everywhere, there's a problem here, because you're thinking like, who's going to engage this attorney to do any kind of legal work for them when there's not even a place for me to sit down? Right. There's no conference room. Is just like piles of papers. Right. And then you think, how does this person stay in business? Yeah. But you reluctantly do the work thinking they need tech support too when this person contacted you. And then they make you wait, or they get nasty where they tell you that they sent the payment. Yeah.
To me, that was just very frustrating. It's like, you got a reminder after 21 days, right? Since the invoice went to
an automated reminder, no less. An
automated reminder specified right there. It's been 3 weeks since you got the email with the amount due. Okay, maybe you sent payment, but my automated reminder didn't know that you sent payment like 7 days ago. You know, that automated system didn't notice. It doesn't know how to check the mail for him. Like, I wish it did. That would be great.
Yeah. And was that the case I mean, I don't know if you remember, it was a while ago, but did it overlap? Is that what happened? I don't think we actually ever got the check. Collected.
You know what? I will tell you right now, I'm pretty, because I like in my mind, it was like, we never actually got that check and you paid my credit card.
So awesome, because that's just so typical. They're all cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're an attorney listening to this show. You're all cut from the same cloth.
That's right.
They say sometimes when you have a unique person, the mold broke after they made this person.
Yeah.
They're still putting these guys out. It doesn't matter whether the guy's 75 or 25. They're still the same. Yeah.
They broke the mold, but they put it back together and you know,
they're still making them.
Yeah, they're still making them. Yeah.
You can get them on Etsy.
That was classic. Just burn it down. Like, you didn't, like, something's lost in the mail, burn down the whole relationship. We're going to find some. I'm like, that's fine. That's more trouble than it's worth. You got to be kidding me. But at this point, since then, it's been 4 years, or 4.5. It's all, again, a lot more automated, and we don't have that stress. We just don't have that issue. So that's a big one if you can get there when you're in for the listeners out there in your business. Just, get buttoned up with the billable stuff. It's not worth chasing people down.
If you're listening to this and you've listened to the show, and we all do business a little different way, and it would be helpful to get some of Sam's input here. I try to do things as inexpensively as possible. So I try not to buy too many online services. In our early days, we were looking for people to be guests on our show, and we would have young entrepreneurs on the show who would tell us, oh, I'm using this service and I'm using that service. And these numbers can add up. I track them, as probably most of you listening do, but that's an important thing. You should always track exactly what you're spending on internet services, not only for your business, but for your family or for yourself, and really have a handle on that, because we have clients who have no idea what they're paying. I had a client pay me, a business client. She's a solo entrepreneur, and we literally spent over an hour. So it cost her more than what we figured out we could potentially save her. But we had to look at each individual expenditure that she had, because she had no idea. She was paying Wix. She's, what is that? She's paying Fast Mail. These are services. I didn't set her up with Wix, but I set her up with Fast Mail back in the day. And I'm not sure if I would do that for a client now, but GoDaddy, her domain. And so clients are really woolly on what these services are actually doing for them. Can I get rid of this? No, you really can't get rid of this, because, and then there were things where I had to say to her, what is this? And like, why are you paying twice for this? So we did find some ways that she could save, but ultimately she spent much more money with me to go through it with her than she saved in the year.
Exactly. I had this come up. I'm looking for the email right now where just a couple of days ago, I got an email because we're like an admin on the client's like HostGator account. And so we got their invoice.
Another quality domain service, HostGator website.
And this predates us, of course. And they used to be hosting the email, which is like
HostGator,
total nightmare. And so we migrated their email and then eventually had to follow up a few times to say, you don't need to pay for that email over there anymore. So you have to stay on top of that because they'll just keep paying it, like to your point. Now, this was a email from HostGator to the client with us, on the CC or whatever, and it says renewal of Pro 200, and it shows $1,421. So I saw that and I thought that is, first of all, that must be the web hosting. And I thought that's way too much money. I did the math. That's actually a 3-year term. So that's not horrendous. It winds up being, and that makes a little bit more sense. But here, let me do the math again. I think it was like, so it's like just under $40 a month. That's
still a little bit on the high side.
So I said, you guys can look into this because before you pay for 3 years at this relatively high rate, call them up. There should be somebody at HostGator who can say, okay, based on your traffic, based on the assets under your site, it's not a fancy schmancy site that does a lot of interactive stuff. It's just like what you used to call a business card site or whatever. HostGator should be able to say, you can do our Pro 50 plan or Pro 100 or whatever their options are. And that's plenty of space for you, plenty of data transfer. You shouldn't notice any difference, and that'll save you $10 a month or $20 or whatever it is. So I just recommended he do that. And I said, here's what I know you need from them. So they're your domain registrar still. That's fine to keep them there. We don't have to migrate that. And they are your web host. But other than that, they're not your email host anymore. And I don't know of any other services you have through them. So just so you know, there's also a thing that says Site Lock Essentials. And I'm like, okay, like what is that upsell that you signed up for? Maybe it's just to add SSL, which is a good thing to have, obviously, but maybe there's a cheaper way to do that.
Yeah, sometimes they'll gouge you. Absolutely, they'll gouge you on the SSL certificate. Yeah, so we use, at MacWorks, we use a company called Pair, P-A-I-R.
Yeah.
And they're US-based, which is really nice. So anytime I've ever had to call them, I get somebody, it almost sounds like the same guy's answering, even though I don't think it's somebody operating out of their basement.
That's like calling Now Software back in the day. Do you remember you used to get the developer? I'm talking 15 years ago, but you'd call Now Software and it'd be like, I forget his name, but the guy who makes the software. It's like that. He was doing support.
He was on our show at one point.
That's right. We had him on our show, I think. Sorry, not to derail you, but this guy
that was
from Pair.
That was also if you could find the number, if you could call up, what's the RAID? SoftRaid.
Oh, SoftRaid. Yeah.
So SoftRaid was based in the town Mill Valley across the bridge in San Francisco. Right. You call up, you get the guy right on the phone. There was two guys. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no answering service. It's just like, yeah. Oh, that's funny, man. Yeah. Old school.
This has been fun. I know we haven't talked anything about innovative, but just like ways that we do our business that we assume everybody knows but it's just hearing somebody else talk about how they do simple stuff sometimes helps. It makes you rethink maybe the way you might do something in your business.
That's right. I will also say, just follow through. You guys out there and gals, listeners, know better than we do what you need to do in your practice to really up-level it for this new year. Just do it. Start somewhere. This is probably the advice I needed to hear myself say probably 5 years ago when I should have started to downsize my office or more. That's a project that keeps coming to mind because it took a long time and I knew it would. I knew what I was getting into when I would look around and say, oh man, all this old equipment, all these old tools, these defunct parts, this stuff needs to be dealt with. I'm not just going to put it in a dumpster. I'm going to get rid of the e-waste properly. I'm going to get paid for scrap where I can. I'm going to sell on eBay the equipment that's still viable. I need to securely erase whatever needs to be securely erased. Like I have a responsibility here. I need to go through with this. And that was all necessary to save that monthly expense of my rent, which was not cheap. And so I had a high high motivation to do it. And I really had to spend a lot of time, take a lot of trips because I don't live locally. That was the other, barrier to getting this done. I never expected to move away permanently from, or semi-permanently at least, from Connecticut. And so when I was across the country and looking at this, just tons of work to do that I knew it needed to just fly back and do it. Ultimately, it's worth it. You have to go through with that. I'm now about a year past that point, and I've now been saving that monthly rent every month, which is really helping turn around some financial difficulties in the company. It's really worth putting in that effort, whether you need to spend the time on migrating your billing system or setting up your ticketing system or getting your agreements in place with your clients, implementing your rate increase that your new clients are paying, but those legacy clients are not paying anymore, whether it's your hourly rates or your monthly rates or both. That's another big one I did. Also, in parallel with downsizing my office, implementing these rate increases, that led into this year, or led into through 2024. Finally got that all buttoned up, mostly in 2024. These are big projects that you have to just see through, and it's really worth it to get to that point where you have less of a drain on your finances, you have more income, and that'll get you set up way better for whatever financial insecurities we have coming, or uncertainties at least that we have in this crazy world that we live in. Get the things handled that you can handle and spend the time doing it. Set aside the week or whatever you need to do to just really get a chunk of work done, and let us know what successes you have as the year goes on, and what you want to hear us asking you about to follow up on.
Great point, Joe. And to just echo off of that, the vendors that you use are charging you. There's pricing changes. The pandemic's over. We're not going to do this. We know businesses have been under hardship. They're not worried about you anymore. They're starting to charge you more for your services. And it's important for you to look at all the services that you're using and make sure they're doing the same job that they're doing for you when you signed up. And I think that is important. And I pulled back on one most recently, and it's been really refreshing. And so you just got to, sometimes you may have to do a little bit more work to let a service go. But if it ultimately isn't serving you as well as it should be, you got to let them go.
Yeah, that's another good one. I know the one you're referring to, and I think that was a good topic recently that we covered about how to drop some of these services that we may or may not still need. Yeah, great point. It's been a great topic here to kick off one of our first shows for the new year. So thanks everyone for joining us last minute in the chat and participating, and for listening to Command Control Power. We've got a lot more great content. If you listen to this show and you think, I want to hear more about rates, I want to hear more about how you deal with difficult clients, maybe not from 4.5 years ago, but ones that you're dealing with now. If you want to hear us talk about those issues that we have with clients, employees, billing, rates, how we run our businesses, really sign up for our Patreon. That's where we talk much more openly about this stuff. And even if you just want to hear more of the same, there's more there. So there's a lot of exclusive content there by now. We've been doing it for now a couple of years. So there's tons of shows that are exclusive to Patreon, a lot of perennial topics that we cover regularly, including some stuff we touched on today, but where we share some actual numbers, how our businesses did in 2024, et cetera. Sign up at commandcontrolpower.com, click on support, and join us at any level on Patreon. You can get access to all of those shows. You can also join us for the live stream. So you get the shows before they even air to the public, and you can participate, and you'll hear yourself called out in the show as well when we acknowledge your feedback and commentary. So we really appreciate all of our listeners, especially our Patreon supporters, and find out more about all of the above at commandcontrolpower.com. Thank you all very much for listening.
Of customers of all kinds. Am I on the cloud? Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple expertise right now. Right now. My Mac is slow. Have you tried restarting? Well, the fans won't blow. Have you tried restarting? But my data is gone. Have you tried restarting? I dropped it